Our world, as we know it, is in a time of crisis. Our planet is warming. Polar ice caps are melting. Our oceans are filling up with pollution. Even here, in the greatest city in the world, poverty is on the rise. Our time to act is now. But what can we do to be the change? It's going to take our very best in creativity and collaboration. Unity in our networks will be our strongest currency. I believe in the power of personal story to help solve life's most complex issues. Follow me on my journey connecting with experts from different communities, each doing their part in moving society forward. The human brain has a fascinating ability to move past beta, alpha, and theta frequencies to a state of laser-like focus and performance. This state is called flow. So we are here on the Upper West Side in Manhattan. I am so excited to get a chance to talk to my good friend Teresa McKinney. She's the Director of Community Engagement at the Juilliard School. She always has some really interesting insights on the industry, and I can't wait to hear what she has to share with you today. So how have you been? What have you been up to?
Good.
Yeah?
I'm good. Working, a little bit of travel.
So I guess for people who may not necessarily be familiar with your work, would you mind kind of telling them a little bit about what you do, like
Okay.
day to day?
Day to day, well, I am in community engagement and basically in the arts. So basically what that means on the day-to-day basis in my work at Juilliard is connecting the talents of the arts institution with students, community, different community-based organizations, schools, and we connect those artists with those schools and community to create, to educate, to share, to have any type of authentic engagement. And so that's basically what I spend my time doing. So day to day, emailing, just like anyone else. Emailing, meetings, sharing what we do.
And so how did you get into this line of work?
I was a musician growing up. I played, as a church musician. I played flute, piano, sang in choir. I studied after school, took piano lessons. Middle school, I joined the band. I was in the band from 6th grade to 12th grade. And I went on to continue studying music. My family worked in higher education. So my father was a dean of admissions in college. So I used to learn, my swimming lessons, the tennis lessons, everything was related to the college and the university. So I really got into how to connect the resources of an institution like a university with the community. So I studied music, performance. I performed for a while, regional orchestra, taught flute, taught classes, music, danced in the community, did all kinds of community work, African dancing, drumming. And then I went back to school and studied arts administration because I realized I wanted to design programs. And so I went to Florida State for graduate school. I went to Hampton undergrad. And at Florida State, I worked in the community, but Florida State paid my tuition while I worked in the community to do the work. So I liked that model, and it was something I worked out with the institution. And so I just continued exploring that, how to use the resources of an institution or a school to enhance or revitalize the community.
How would you describe arts administration to maybe somebody in high school?
Creating connections. As an administrator, you're sort of building relationships, you're building connections in different areas. And this, as an arts administrator, it's mostly in the arts space. So music, dance, drama, jazz, it really doesn't matter what media or what form of art or visual arts, it's making the connections administratively and then artistically. So what makes sense. in sort of building something artistically, and then being able to picture it and implement it. So that's what I see as an arts administrator.
Talk to us a little bit about your experience working at an opera company that shall not be named.
Oh, okay.
We will avoid that, or the names have been scrubbed to protect the innocent.
Thank you.
But let's at least like talk about like what that experience is like, because I think there's some really interesting like lessons and growing pains and like your story of working there.
Okay. Well, I'll start from the beginning. I had all of this sort of experience that I shared just a moment ago. My degree in music, a master's degree in arts administration, and several years of experience. But when you move to New York, sometimes they want you to be, New York savvy. So I took a job as an assistant. And it was a good job because the person that hired me, she really wanted to hire somebody that was an arts administrator and a career in the arts. So that wasn't, so bad. And I respected her. She was very respectful towards me. And so I worked with her for about a year and a half, and then I moved on to another department. And that's where I got to do some really interesting work in education. And then at that point, there were a lot of financial troubles. So when people would leave, they wouldn't rehire. So people would leave, but we would keep the same amount of work happening, and they wouldn't rehire staff. So it ended up about two of us doing the same level of work, which can be typical in nonprofit or typical in arts, specifically arts nonprofit. I think what's not typical is that when you take on a level of responsibility for an extended amount of time and are not given the proper title, that's probably a little off. So that was a bit of a battle. That's when I really started to see the dynamic when it comes to race and gender. There's a treatment that's radically different that's happening here between me and those around me.
It sounds like what I'm hearing is the frustrations that we often come up against as being people of color working in predominantly white institutions or PWIs, and that feeling of always having to prove why you're there or why you've gotten into the door. Would you say that that's something that you've seen as sort of a trend in your career as you've moved from one predominantly white space to another? Has it been specific to say the arts in New York City, or is it, was this the same theme in North Carolina or Florida if those institutions again were, predominantly white ran?
They're all sort of different situations, different environments. However, there is a similarity between predominantly white institutions. I was sitting in an office with colleagues that I would consider, people that I would have drinks with after work, people that I would consider that I was close to, that I'd worked with 4 and 5 years. And when I would tell them I was considering going to that executive program at Harvard, or, taking courses or doing something like that, they would just break out laughing.
Wow.
That kind of reaction is very interesting to me, because out of all of the years we've been together, they had no idea that my father was educated at Harvard. My cousins all went to Princeton. Ivy League is part of my family just as much as we consider Hampton and Spelman and Morehouse elite institutions, as well as Princeton, Harvard, Yale, and Oberlin. These were my family. So when they were laughing, it just occurred to me, I was like, wow, it just confirmed in that particular moment. I was like, wow, this really confirms that people think that I can't be in this space, or I don't have what I need to be in this space.
What are some of these other protective factors that you've sort of been able to put in place to kind of help, because I'm thinking about somebody who might watch this, who might identify with your story and even with your struggle, and go, okay, but what can I do to kind of help me get to tomorrow? I'm like right about to turn in this resignation notice. Like, what before I press send on this email or whatever it is, like what else can I be doing right now?
We all have those moments where we're about to hit send on something we probably shouldn't have written in the beginning. So you have to learn how to write that and then send it to yourself, or don't send it at all, then just so you don't have an accident and send it to the wrong person. So yeah, there are some coping mechanisms. For me, it's more spiritual. Like, I can't go into work every day just cold. Like, I have to have a ritual in the morning that protects me, because that's kind of how it is to go into an environment where you're seen as a certain way. My style, which has been difficult sometimes, I am a listener. I'll be quiet. I'm a quiet person most of the time. What's difficult is there's a style of working where you feel like you have to assert yourself. You always have to make sure you say something. And I know those moments when they exist, when it's happening. I say, okay, this is that type of meeting where I might need to say one thing just to assert myself. But it's really just, a lot of times it's sort of pretense. And then for that person that's discouraged, you do have to look at what's happening that stretches you, that's going to position you for the next role. So when you quit, you won't encounter that. You're just quitting. It doesn't mean go into and stay in an abusive relationship with your work environment, but you need to stay with it to see what it is that you need to learn, and be in control of when you move on in a mindset way. Don't let anybody push you, because that's giving power to those people, whoever they may be. But make sure you have the right mindset before you get into an environment. Ask the right questions before you get into a job. Talking to the supervisor, asking what type of freedom you have or liberty you have to create what you want to create within the job. Ask those questions before you take a job. And a lot of times we don't seek mentors that can guide us in that way as far as our professional, what rights that we do have when a company wants us to work there. So, that's something that I would say for a young person that's pursuing a career. Think about what it means when you go to an interview. You're interviewing them to see if that's the environment where you want to work first.
You have a tremendous amount of experience working in community engagement and community programs. We also know by being in the industry that it's not that uncommon to see one of us working in that capacity at some of these institutions. Why do you think that has become such a common trend in this industry? And not only this, now you're starting to see it in tech. You're starting to see it in automotive companies where they have it's either like a chief people officer or you have a chief of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that role is almost created specifically and exclusively for. And then as you start going up the chain of command, there you go, okay, but where's that representation as the chain goes up? So
some of these officers or positions, their hands are tied before they even get there.
Oof.
Because the people that are, around the table making the decisions are around the table making the decisions. So that's what it is. So at this point, when you have of different backgrounds, all different types of people are coming out of college every year looking for opportunities. Some of them may need some extra training, some of them need access to internships, etc. But there are tons of qualified people to do great work. When it comes to, for example, Black American dollars, they're strong. We're consumers. Why would you not have representation in your company? Just on a business standpoint, forget about diversity, just from a business, just dollars, It's the same in nonprofit or the arts sector to me. It's kind of like you're trying to engage this community. You have nobody on your staff, you have nobody on your stage, you have nobody in the backstage, and then you just maybe have enough people that you can check off that you have diversity based on your maintenance team, which that's, you have a wonderful maintenance team, but your stage still looks like a different era. So whether you're in New York, California, Nashville, doesn't matter. Why is it that you need to hire somebody to tell you that you need to include people from different backgrounds. It's strange.
What are some of the things that you look for, like in hiring people, either for like, full-time sort of like, or part-time work or consultant work? What are some of the things you look for to be able to sort of say, okay, I know this person's going to be good for the team?
Right. Like just when I met you all, I can say in a minute, I'm like, okay, I can tell that they're qualified. And I can tell from handshake and how you introduce yourself. A lot of things from that. But that's not everything. So then you have to get to know someone. I like for somebody to be sharp, but flexible. I like for somebody to be open to ideas, not be afraid of throwing out ideas, and being honest, to challenge things. But be able to write, be able to write a decent email. So there's little things that I look at, and I don't think it takes me long. I like to be with one other person if I'm meeting somebody or interviewing with somebody, but it really doesn't take me long to see that they have a work ethic. They would go a little above and beyond with their energy to make something happen. You can tell that from an interview. You can tell a lot. Meet somebody that has a sense of humor, not making jokes, but that can like go with the flow if there's a shift or a change, that kind of thing.
What advice would you give to a young person thinking about coming into this industry? What would you say to them to help sort of prep them for what it is that they are about to get into?
If they're interested in arts administration?
Arts administration.
I would say that to, stay creative and do a lot of writing. Like I write the ideas that I have and be patient with seeing through certain types of ideas. You always want to think through things, write things down. Ideas may not be ready at that moment, but there will come a time when you can share something that's valuable in your experience. So just, have a patience and just, kick the doors down and go where you want to go and be where you want to, try to get in there. I call it a foot in the door experience. I believe in volunteering. I'm a little old school. Like, if there's something that I want to do or learn, I'll volunteer. That's what I used to do when I was younger. I don't volunteer as much now. Volunteering to do, I produce with a team of people a Christmas show every year. I will always do that. It's a big Christmas show. And but that's what I do in my free time. So I believe you do what you love. Doesn't matter whether you get paid to do it or not. And as you do what you love, then opportunities come because you get good at it. And you get hired.
It's interesting you bring up, this idea of getting paid for it.
Yeah.
This is definitely not the business to go into if you want to get rich, although some have been able to do it.
Right.
I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about, ways that you've been able to diversify your income to be able to keep your passion alive, while also sort of, doing things that you're just genuinely interested in and things like that.
A lot of people now, and I wish I had known when I was younger, study financial literacy, have financial literacy. You can work your way up, but you need to have roommates or whatever. You think about the balance of your living expenses, what you like, if you have to travel to go visit your family or you live close to your family, you just have to budget all of those things. What do you like? What do you want to do? And stay within your budget. Then learn about financial literacy, how financial systems work. You do have to start diversifying, even if you have a low earned income. So figure out how to put something away, how to invest a little something over here. And I personally like real estate, so I like to invest in real estate. I have rental properties, that's part of my income. So I never made a really high salary in my earned income as an arts administrator. I would play some gigs here and there, sing a little something here and there, put a little into my investment over here, put my little earned income into my real estate over here. So that's what I would recommend for anyone, just to find what they can do and diversify, starting as young as possible.
Again, for someone thinking about coming into this industry, if they are running up against that frustration of looking at, okay, this is where the glass ceiling seems to be, how do they either break through that glass ceiling or find another room to go into?
The entry is tough, but once you're in, I would say think about how you're tracking and if you're on a career path with a sort of a 9 to 5-ish type of job, there is a track that you're on. Whether you like that or not, that's what you're on. In arts administration, sometimes the track isn't very clear. It's an initial barrier, can be tough, but you kind of have to be open-minded. I went into opera. I was actually more interested in jazz. So my first interviews were within jazz, and I was like, wow, it's not going well. And that's really my, I was playing jazz through college and stuff like that in a little club at midnight on Sundays. We don't get into that, but the point is, I was like, yeah, I want to come work with this new entity, right? Anyway, so I was like, well, that didn't work out, but I'm just going to go over here because that's interesting too. And I could really learn something over here. So what happens, I went over here and I ended up working with all of the people that I would have been working with if I were over here. So it's just a matter of being open-minded, and especially when you're young, just get the job, get in there. Then from that point you get to a level of management where you may hit a ceiling. That's that glass ceiling where those executive managers are sitting around the table making decisions, and you're not around that table, and you've been working your way and you're still not around that table. That's that glass ceiling. And when you hit that, there's a little bit of, sometimes you have to leave and come back if you really want to work in that place. A lot of people leave, go somewhere else, go to another town, go to another company and return. They work around. And then it gives you varied experience. But mostly what I tell young people is to create your own thing. Find a way to make some earned income and then create your own thing. That's the only way to avoid running into those barriers, ceilings, whatever. Create your own thing. Yeah.
Is there any sort of like last words that you want to kind of throw out there that you think other people could maybe want to hear or could maybe benefit from?
I would say that I would reiterate, create your own thing. With the younger generation, there's like this sick amount of talent. There's just so much talent. They're creating things that we've never seen before. They're using video and doing things that we've never seen before, and that's awesome. And so build on that. Keep people around you that are moving forward, that are forward thinking, that are positive in their mindset, that are ambitious in their mindset, that are learning new things. Always keep those kinds of people around you. And I think that's one of the things. And create your own thing. Create something for yourself. That's what I would say for the younger generation. Even my generation, I would say. I'm thinking like that as well. But for younger people, definitely think entrepreneurial. Create your own thing. Because your unique self is what's marketable. So that's what I would say. Sick amounts of talent.